5 in the morning, fists on my front door like a sledgehammer, a plastic badge flashing in porch light, and a voice barking. "Open up, mandatory inspection section 14B. I didn't open. I lifted my hand and pointed straight at the doorbell camera. Little red LED, blinking like an eye that never blinks. And in that beat, I knew this wasn't neighborly concern. This was a play. And someone named Pamela Kerrigan, the HOA president. Everyone just calls Karen, was dealing the cards. My name's Ethan Walker. 36 house at 1427 Maple Drive in Pine Lake Estates, out in Aurora, Colorado. Quiet streets, a man and his dog, a flag by the porch, a patch of native grass. I babied all spring. I'm not the guy who hunts for trouble. I like fixing my own fence, chatting at the mailbox, grilling on Sundays. But trouble has a way of finding the person it thinks won't fight back. You know what I mean. The first time Karen came by, it was 6:12 a.m., clipboard under her arm, smile thin as fishing line. "Mr. Walker, your planter is off by 2 inches coastal. Blue is not on our approved palette, and your flag is 4 inches too low. That's $500 apiece, 48 hours to comply." She said it soft, like reading a grocery list, and set down a sheet titled, Inspection. Order 14B. Wrong fonts. Loud header. Looked official. If you squinted. I didn't argue. I just pulled out the printed handbook I got when I moved in section 5.2 on flags. Nothing about height, asked her to email the exact rule. "No need," she said. "We'll address it at a mandatory meeting next Thursday." And she walked off, measuring my lawn with a folding ruler camera, snapping my plates like I was already a case file. That evening I did what a boring person does when they're being framed. I measured everything. Photographed. Everything. Time-stamped every corner of my yard because people who roll in groups have their story prepared. And the only equalizer I trust is a red light that says recording. The next day, certified mail landed like bricks. Mailbox height, non-compliant, 350 unapproved shrub species, 400 driveway oil stain, 300. The picture for the oil stain showed a car that wasn't even mine. And at 6:03 a.m., an email warned that if I didn't sign Form 22A, authorizing interior inspection, I'd lose pool access and irrigation. That's when I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it sounded like a mob movie that decided to go suburban. That afternoon, Naomi Brooks across the street brought coffee. She works at city clerk whisper voice, like the hedges might be wired. I checked the bylaws on file. "Ethan, there is no 14B. Their form and header aren't from any approved template." She handed me the real PDF and edit logs. 18 months with 0 amendments, and the look in her eyes said, "You're not crazy. They just want you to feel that way." I called Marcus Hale, a friend of Naomi's HOA litigator. "The calm kind textbook," he said. "I'm sending a demand letter under CCIOA, 72 hours to cease and desist. We'll request minutes amendments, budgets, vendor contracts, and if they stonewall, we file and notify the AG." He combed the metadata on the 14B PDF. The HOA emailed me, creator listed as pam.kerrigan@pinehoa.org. Mail to pam.kerrigan@pinehoa.org, created 2 weeks ago, yeah? That happened, and in my gut, I heard a trap spring on the wrong rabbit. By the weekend, my pool fob was dead. A tow truck idled in my drive at midnight to haul my pickup for overnight parking. That never happened, because the truck was in my garage. I showed the driver the time lapse. He shrugged. "Just following orders," and backed out. Then at 5:58 a.m., 3 guys in black windbreakers came back, Open up under 14B random inspection, the lead said. Chin up, I kept the deadbolt pointed at the sign I'd taped to the glass. Audio and video recording in progress. Either show me a court order or step off my property, I said. Slow and clean eyes on the lens across the street. Naomi lifted her phone and started filming. The three shared a glance like someone just turned on house lights mid-magic trick. Arapahoe County's patrol car rolled into the cul-de-sac. Deputy Sarah Whitfield stepped out, uniform, crisp tone. Crisper, she checked their badges, checked their papers. No authority here. HOA cannot compel interior access without a court order. Leave now, she said, and they did like a tide, pulling back 2 feet at a time, and 10 minutes later, here came Karen plate of chocolate chip cookies. The same smile you see in campaign mailers. Ethan. I'm so sorry for the confusion, she said, placing the plate on my step, without asking if I wanted it. We really value community safety. Her eyes not on the view, not on my planters. No, her eyes tracked the power line along the back fence, a perfect place to invent a safety hazard. Maybe we can work this out before next week's meeting, she tried. And I told her what I tell anyone who wants to blur lines, put it in writing. From that morning, I lived like a guard on a small post. Another camera, low on the porch, motion alerts. On my phone, a boring log on the counter time position. Odd sound. Repeating plates. I even taped a checklist under the main monitor. Read the time sweep. With no third parties outside frame. Feels obsessive until you've had a front row seat to a character assassination dressed in compliance language. You know what I mean. The Whisper campaign started inside the clubhouse and at the little free library by the trail. Veterans sometimes struggle. Someone told Mrs. Henderson, who loves purple asters. Even though I'm not a vet. Details don't matter. When the point is to make people step away from you on the sidewalk, Mr. Davis mentioned. Community values with a careful look. I didn't blame them. Fear is heavy, and people set it down wherever they can. Then Naomi slid me a printed email that made my hands go still over the sync subject line. Compliance acceleration inside one line that said it all. Target 1427. Create repeat violations to trigger a lien inside 30 days. Sent from Karen's address. I showed Marcus he didn't flinch. Stay the course, demand financials. And when we got the budget breakdown, a line jumped off the page. 18400 to Frontier Neighborhood Services. LLC Compliance Consulting Corporate Officer. Sharing a last name with Kerrigan's conflict of interest in neon letters. We printed 2 copies and highlighted it like a map to buried treasure. Thursday night special meeting on community safety. The room smelled like old carpet and fear chairs in rows. Projector humming Karen in a blue blazer with a gavel and a smiley tone that didn't touch the air. We need to address a pattern of non-compliance at 1427. She began. For the good of the neighborhood, I raised my hand, asked for 5 minutes. Some folks shifted like they'd already made up their minds about me. Fair enough, I plugged in my laptop and played 40 seconds from my porch cam. The trio at my door, demanding entry under a fake clause. Their faces, their voices, and the frame where Deputy Whitfield walks up and says, "No." The room didn't erupt. It just went quiet in that heavy American way, where people start doing math in their heads and coming up with the same number. I handed out CCIOA excerpts Marcus had printed and tabbed. Karen tried, "There's a new law." Marcus stood up from the back, waiting out even. "There isn't Article 7, Section 3 applies here. Then I threw up the 14B PDF on the big screen and zoomed the metadata until the creator name filled the wall. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. And for a finale, I clicked to the budget page. Frontier Neighborhood Services circled the matching last name, the dollar amount. Still no speech from me, just numbers and names. I looked at my neighbors, some who had avoided eye contact all week, and I said, I don't want to fight. I want to mow my lawn. Wave at you when you walk your dog grill on Sunday. But I won't sign a form that isn't real, won't let strangers into my house without a judge's ink, and I won't pay a penny for violations that were manufactured, so a lien could be filed. Marcus moved to remove the president under Article 7. Section 3, someone's seconded hands went up. 32 out of 47. The treasurer pro tem read the actions. Suspension of Pamela Kerrigan, turnover of financials. Within 24 hours, withdraw all citations against 1427. Suspend all inspections without court authority. I didn't gloat. I didn't grandstand. I tapped stop on my phone's record. Button, a security guard held the door. Karen clutched a $500 citation. She never got to hand me, eyes on the carpet. And if this were a movie, that's where the director would cut to black, after someone slipped a note into my mailbox, folded in quarters. Sorry for staying quiet, written in careful cursive. I keep it next to the box of deck screws. Not to remember they were wrong, but to remember. Silence has volume, and sometimes you have to speak over it, and yeah, there were audits. There were emails. There were people who tried to rewrite their parts. But the truth is, I walked the line from feeling small to standing on my own floorboards. Without shaking, I learned that a little counsel with a seal and a few rules can become a millstone, if the wrong hands turn it. And I learned my voice has a pace that isn't angry and isn't timid, a steady pace that invites the facts to take the mic. Karen chose a different pace. The pace of someone who thought cookies could cover metadata, and it worked until it didn't, until a room full of people saw large letters on a wall, and a deputy said no, and a lawyer said, here's the clause, and a neighbor with a city job said I checked, and a guy who wanted a quiet life said please put that in writing. I think every neighborhood has a version of this. A person who thinks rules are a ladder, not a fence, who forgets that order is supposed to protect people, not corner them. And maybe you've seen it at work or at school, a policy that sounds noble but lands like a fist on the wrong desk. You know what I mean. I'm not a hero. I'm a guy who got misread and then decided to read the fine print out loud. Because when you magnify the right page and give the room a second to breathe, you'd be surprised how fast minds can change, even yours about yourself. So let me end with a question that might stir things up in the comments. Where does protection end and control begin? When someone says community safety while padding a line item, how do you call it out without burning the block down? Tell me what you'd have done. Tell me where you draw the line, and if you've been there, a fake rule waved in your face, a door pounded at dawn, a rumor that moved faster than you could. Share it, because sometimes justice starts with a simple sentence, said calmly into a camera. Show me where 14B is, and if this hit home. Tap like, so this story finds the next person standing on their side of the door, wondering if they're crazy or if the system is.